Uncle Dan.
Hey, Uncle Doug.
I think as the time has gone on in this podcast, we've all kind of found our niche.
Oh, dear.
You know, I tend to lean towards more of the Mormon stuff.
Yeah.
You for some reason, love to pick on Indian gods, Hindu gods, and Uncle Mark brings the dumb.
It's true.
You go with what you know.
It's true.
And also, Uncle Mark is the one who always likes to tempt the most dangerous people in the world to blow us up. So, Uncle, what do you have for us, Uncle Mark?
It's true. I just love to flirt with that sort of danger. And, you know, as far as the dumb, you work in the medium you have. So,
Yeah.
You know, guys, we do go on and on about all manner of Christians and Mormons, as Doug was saying, and their dizzying collection of holy books and how we've found them wanting, right? And we've oftentimes had a laugh at the head-scratching, air quotes, miracles found therein on too many occasions to recount here. Please see our entire catalog. But guys, we've been a little neglectful of our cousins of the book, haven't we? The Muslims and their little Bible, the Quran. So we're talking about a miracle today, but before we get into that, for anyone somehow unfamiliar with this particular piece of biblical fanfic, the Quran began to be, air quotes, revealed to a guy named Mohammed around 621 ACE, and continually, nearly every day for the next 23 years. That's right, this 600-page book was received in near daily drips and drabs for 23 years, so he must have written it all down, right? No. Muhammad couldn't read or write, but it's theorized that some of his friends could, and scribbled the daily distributions on whatever was lying around, which included leaves and bones, scraps of paper, cloth if they had any. Who gathered all of this hot detritus and scraps and collected it? Nobody really knows. The whole of the thing wasn't gathered up and compiled for decades. So prior to this, it was purely an oral, memorized, or paraphrased bunch of randomness. So,
Hey, quick, grab me a bone. I need to write this down.
hey, quick, somebody write this somewhere.
I don't have a bone, just remember it.
Just remember it. It's going to be important someday. Way more important than you can even imagine. So
Don't worry though, we'll get everything right. I've got
totally.
a pretty darn good memory.
So now that we've established how there can't possibly be any problems with this narrative chain of custody of all the scraps and piles of leaves, the most perfect book ever was written on by countless different people, let's talk about a few things Muhammad wrote about himself in this holy book, his miracles. And I should make clear when I say wrote, kind of said.
Just claimed.
Yeah. Now, as we'll explore, there are a lot of miracles the book Muhammad wrote attributes to its protagonist, Muhammad, but many Muslims consider these 5 big ones the main ones. Are you ready, guys?
Oh, I'm excited. I know a couple of them, but I don't know. I don't think I could name 5, so I'm pretty
Okay,
stoked.
well, first, the journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, and then heaven and back to Mecca in one night, known as the Isra and Miraj, or night journey, an earthly journey that would normally have taken a month each way in the year 621.
It only takes a month to go from Mecca to Jerusalem and heaven?
Yeah, the heaven part I was unable to calculate because it isn't.
Because it doesn't appear on Google Maps?
Exactly.
That's right.
It seems to be a particularly, strange triangle.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's pretty impressive. One night for a 2-month plus whatever journey.
Yeah, that's good.
Next, throwing sand in the eyes of his enemies at the Battle of Hunain, causing them to go blind, which hardly seems miraculous since sand being thrown into eyes is classic beach bully tactics performed on the regular, even to this day.
That seems pretty pedestrian, to be perfectly honest. How many guys did he do this to?
Well, when you see what the miracle I'm going to talk about is, it's going to feel even more pedestrian. So next, increasing a tiny bit of water to let his 300 thirsty companions drink. Not a bad trick in the rather parched Arabian Peninsula.
Sure.
But Jesus could have turned that...
Feels like a little rip-off of Jesus, though.
Yeah, but Jesus could have turned that into wine, so advantage Christianity.
Right, yeah.
So next, the Quran itself is considered by some Muhammad's only real and truly important miracle. Yes, a really boring book that nobody wrote down, actually, for like 40 years. And this, coming from an ex-Mormon, is considered so miraculous by Muslims, most consider it to actually be the living word of God.
Wow.
Now, there are also quite a few other miracles true believers insist Muhammad performed. They claim at least 100, which is more than Jesus. That may be that they might be of interest to our listeners. So I sorted through all 100 for a little tasting dish of the extremely weird and the very often totally useless of the marvelous magical manifestations of Muhammad, Mecca's madman of miracles. So,
is it going to be better than throwing sand in eyes and making a book? Because so far I'm not that impressed, to be honest.
We'll see.
I can do one of those two things.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do both if you don't actually have to write the book.
That's right.
So let's
say
see.
it.
There was telling two trees that were in his way to move, which they obligingly did.
Oh.
So I guess Muhammad was like a rook. He could only move in straight lines.
Yeah, exactly.
He spit in a guy's blind eye and it got better. So one up that, Jesus.
There you go. Well, and also, like, that's good if, like, you accidentally blinded the wrong person with the sand, then you can fix it.
Yeah. You're the disease and the cure. His companions could hear his food talking and praising God before Muhammad ate it, which is a nightmarish image to consider.
Yeah.
What does hummus sound like when it talks?
Praise Allah. He understood the language of the animals. That's really cool, huh, guys?
Oh, there you go. Little
Since
Doolittle action.
One of the tenets on day 3 of the Hajj, the journey to Mecca each Muslim must make during their lifetime, is the halal slaughter of a goat. He didn't really give a shit about what they had to say, I suppose.
Huh.
He yelled at a mountain to stop having an earthquake underneath him, and it obeyed. So that's cool.
That's a good one, sure.
He could speak and hear dead people, so that's not a crazy thing.
All right.
And very importantly, he did not cast a shadow, his followers say. So that's a really good miracle for proving something.
Such a strange resume of miracles.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not done. But most critically, he once had to comfort a palm tree that was crying inconsolably because he had stopped leaning on it. So apparently Muhammad saw himself as something as a cross between Jesus and the Lorax. Why not? But, dear uncles, did you notice in the first group of 5 of his most important miracles that I mentioned only 4? I'm certain you caught my little trick, did you not?
I don't know how to count.
That's one of your miracles.
Leaving things out. It is the miracle I left off that list that I want to discuss today. That's right, old chums. If you thought I was sidestepping while you were expecting bisecting, it's the bi-hemispherical lunar miracle, Mohammed splitting the motherfucking moon. Now, this is where I would have had Doug play Y'all Ready for This on his phone. But stupid Andrew says we can't get sued anymore. So it's totally true, you guys. It says so right in the gripping edge-of-your-seat narrative of the most perfect book ever written about the guy performing the miracle by the guy performing the miracle. Let's go there now. In Surah Al-Qamar 54, 1-2, it says, "The hour has come near, and the moon has split in two. And if they see a miracle, they turn away and say, quote, passing magic." The end. It's all right there, guys. Game, set, match.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What did I just hear? I'm very confused.
But what does all this truth mean? Well, here's how most Muslims and Muslim apologists interpret those two cryptic sentences in a more fleshed out version of the story, which I paraphrase very much for brevity here. The miracle of the splitting of the moon occurred before the migration to Medina upon the demands of the pagans with the permission of God, and it was shown by the Prophet Muhammad. The pagans demanded of Muhammad, "If you are truly a prophet that has been appointed by Allah, then split the moon in half. Let it be such a way that one half will appear over Mount Abu Qubais, and the other half will be seen over Mount Qaqian." The Prophet Muhammad asked, "If I do, will you become Muslims?" The pagans, known liars, right, said they would. On the 14th night, when the moon was full, the Prophet Muhammad wanted Almighty Allah to give him the miracle which the pagans demanded from him. When the Gabriel informed the prophet Mohammed that God had accepted his prayer, he announced it to the Meccans, and so the pagans witnessed the splitting of the moon on the 14th night. When Almighty God let the moon split in half, one half standing over Mount Abu Kubais and the other half over Mount Kwaikyan, the prophet Mohammed shouted at all to bear witness. However, the pagans, somewhat astonishingly, said, "Muhammad cast a spell on us." Some of them also said, if Muhammad had cast a spell on us, then he couldn't have cast a spell on everyone. Let us ask the wayfarers who came from the surrounding areas if they saw what we saw. They asked the people who came from everywhere, and I like the everywhere. Yes, we also did see the moon in that state. We saw the moon as split. They informed that the moon was split. Among the people who came from everywhere and had seen the moon split, there was no one who had not seen the moon split. However, the pagans somehow still refused to become Muslims and to believe by saying this is a prevalent magic. So, to recap, the unbelievers were being mean to Muhammad, and he asked God to give them a sign, which he provided in the form of splitting the nearest planet in half, and they still didn't believe. Cool story.
Yeah.
So let's
Just
tackle
goes
this.
to show, if you got a non-believer, don't try to convert them. Just blow them up. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, that's probably your best course of action. So,
And no mention of the tides that would have resulted from a
Right?
split
I
moon.
was thinking about that too. It'd be
Well,
cool.
we'll
You could-
get there. We'll
the
get there.
surfing action would be amazing.
So let's tackle this lunacy point by point. First of all, to the claims that people all over the known world saw the moon break in distinct halves and separate by what must have been thousands of miles. No, they did not. There are two
Right.
sources for this claim. One is the Quran itself, accompanied by writings of non-contemporary faithful Muslims, none of whom would have been alive to see the event. The other is the only foreign source, and even that's not exactly clear, that is cited by apologists is a single, weirdly composed and compiled manuscript of unknown authorship and unknown origin in an obscure collection in London titled Kisat Shakruti Firmad, and it is described thusly in one of the collection's catalogs. And I quote, "A fabulous account of the first settlement of the Muhammadans in Malabar under King Shakruti Kraganor, a contemporary of Muhammad, who was converted to Islam by the miracle of the division of the moon." Which is a catchy title. Note the work the term fabulous account is doing in that first sentence. that this is the only non-Quranic other source from an entire world full of people, Persians, Egyptians, Indians, Mayans, Japanese, Celts, Pacific Islanders, Incas, Hopis, werewolves, etc., anxiously watching the moon intently every night for signs and omens, and somehow not seeing it break the fucking half. Just one weird story written by a Muslim source long after the fact that an Indian king converted to Islam, and that's it. Those are the only sources.
Well, that is more supporting evidence than the Book of Mormon has.
It's crazy the
It's
similarities, isn't it?
It's equal supporting
Yeah,
evidence.
the witnesses. So, nobody else saw it, and by Muhammad's own account, the ones who did thought it was some kind of parlor trick. So, now to the reality of splitting our closest cosmic dance partner in half. Let's give our friend Muhammad a tiny bit of the benefit of the doubt, since he had no clear idea what the moon actually is. Did he know it's a spherical planet? No. As the moon is tidally locked to the Earth, we only ever see its one side, and most cultures at the time thought it was a disk. Maybe if it rotated, he'd have known it was a ball, but I don't think he did.
Okay.
He certainly didn't know how gigantic it is, as in his sky it was rather tiny. Though the Arabs were among the first to understand the Earth was a sphere, it appears they concluded that after Muhammad's time. Mm-hmm. Our home sphere, Earth, is 12,742 kilometers in diameter, and though it's smaller at a diameter of 3,474 kilometers, the moon is still huge. It has a surface area just a little less than that of all of Asia. The moon has a volume of 21.9 billion cubic kilometers. Yes, that's a lot, especially when you know that a significant portion of that inner volume is a molten metal core, a blazing hot mess likely to become quite visible once its dusty covering is suddenly snapped in half. So that's that's
you'd
just
think
part
so,
of it.
but it's like biting into a Gushers.
Yeah, it's got a liquid center that you would be sure to notice if you bit into it. So,
Or like if you cut Doug in half.
I have a liquid center.
he does have a liquid, but it's not molten. At the beginning of the Quranic verse, it says, "The hour has come near, and the moon has split in two." And I found another pretty amazing Muslim apologetic attached to that. By the way, guys, we read a lot of apologetics, Christian, Mormon, and oh my God, the Mormon ones are just so fucking sad. But the Muslim ones may be even sadder. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, it's just awful. Anyway, this modern apologetic connects the splitting of the moon to another Quranic verse about the Day of Judgment. That is, I quote, he asks, when will be the day of resurrection? So when the sight shall be dazed, and the moon will be eclipsed, and the sun and the moon will be joined together. Okay, so try to follow the logic here. The apologists claim this tangentially proves the moon was indeed split in half because modern science confirms that the sun and moon will be joined, as claimed in the verse above. Boom, lending some sort of thrice-removed proof that the Quran is right about everything planetary, so the moon was split in two.
Boom goes the IED.
So, how does science prove the sun and moon will be joined? The apologetic claims that the moon is growing more distant from the Earth by a few centimeters a year, and that at some point it will get pulled away and fly through the tens of millions of miles and fall into the sun. Except modern science does not agree with that at all. While it's true that the moon is trying to slip out of the party unnoticed, like a certain uncle I know who is also me, it will, in around 50 billion years, reach a point of balance between pulling away and being pulled back, and orbit the Earth once every 47 days rather than the current 27. So it won't actually fly off into the sun at all. But sadly for this super solid apologetic, 45 billion years before this great proof of the Quran occurs, our aging star will become a red giant and fucking melt our neighborhood and then inhale it. Do we reward the normally ferociously anti-science Muslim apologists half a point because the sun and moon will indeed meet, just not how they insist? Gonna go with no.
Yeah, well, that's tricky.
So several other modern apologists use science-generated photography of the moon's surface to argue that the seismically active, bruised and battered surface of the moon shows evidence of the 7th century magic trick in the form of large scar-like valleys called rills, R-I-L-L-E-S. Planetary geologists have sound explanations for how these formed during ancient periods of volcanic activity on the moon, but they are the hem where God put the damn thing back together after splitting it in half to fail to convince a bunch of pagans to become Muslims and nobody else in the world, full of moon watchers, noticed it at all. So,
yeah, that was cool of God to do the miracle, even though in his omnipotence he obviously recognized that this was not going to work.
Yeah. It's a wasted miracle is still a miracle, I suppose, but it doesn't help that the lunar mending apologists, that they keep insisting there are several valleys over 9 kilometers deep on the moon, when our very well-charted neighbor's deepest ditch is just half a kilometer deep. So again, to recap, a bunch of dildos were laughing at Mohammed for claiming to be a prophet, and so he got all the feels and cracked a planet in half. Nobody else credibly saw this cosmic cataclysm, and it didn't really work because most of the people he showed were like, meh, magic trick. And without exception, after every torturous, science-twisting, wackadoo apologetic I read, they all conclude with something like this. You know, miracles are weird, and maybe the moon only split for those few people standing around Muhammad and not the whole world. And hey, if you need miracles to confirm your faith is shit, so this is really all your fault. So it's all of them kind of end with that. And so that's it. At least you tried, Muslim apologists.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll have... Yeah.
Tearing the moon in half is like Thanos level power. Like, that's a significant thing. I don't even think Jesus claimed anything that grandiose.
Yeah, I don't even think Chris Angel can do that.
So at least you tried. A huge fan of our show.
Yeah,
maybe he's a huge fan of the show. And Chris, thanks for your patronage. Maybe they'll have better luck using science to explain away the sad, weepy tree that needed a hug after it got lonely for Muhammad. So that's splitting the moon, guys. A real thing that totally happened to end.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that. I'm going to go hug a tree.
Let's make like a moon and split.
Damn it, I was about to say that.
Moving on!